Hello and welcome. Thank you for popping into my channel. If you are new here, please like and subscribe for me. If you find this content helpful, smash that notification bell so that you don't miss out on the next video. Comment below with anything that you need help with or topics you'd like me to cover, and check out my website, consultingninja.tech. With that out of the way, let's get to it. We're going to make this cool form builder application. There's just 2 pages. The first page has a form. When we add inputs here, then they show up in the form in the second page. Some cool features that this has: these are bound together so that when we choose the type, we know what type we're adding. And after we add one, we also have this recents list that will allow us to copy recently created inputs, and we can also retrieve deleted items. So if I delete this one out, I can just create it again by choosing it from the recents list and then hitting add again. We also don't want to have multiple copies of those recents, and so we'll filter out any duplicates there as well. Alright, so let's go make this app. So I have this directory here where I'm going to store it. We want to do npm create svelte at latest. And we're going to choose a skeleton project. And I'm going to keep this very bare bones. Now we just need to install all of our packages. And I am using NVM, so I have to swap to the correct node version. If you're not familiar with NVM, it's really sweet. I recommend you get it. Allows you to change your node version simply by typing that really easy command, nvm use whatever node version you want, and if you don't have it, it will install it and then use it. So really straightforward. With all of our packages added, all of our dependencies added, now we can initialize our repository if you so choose. Add everything. Let's do an initial commit. Alright, now let's get this up and running. Alright, here we go. We are starting from scratch. Let's first create a nav bar. So inside of source, create a new folder called lib. And then inside of lib, create a new file called N navbar.svelte. And all we're going to do in here is create 2 links. So really straightforward. Make a nav element. And inside of nav, we want 2 A tags, a href, 1 for home. And we can just copy and paste this. Copy, paste. This one is going to be to form/form. And change this, change our text on our link there. And we're going to do a couple little styles just to make this look halfway okay. And we're going to style nav directly, not a class. Let's do a padding top of 1 EM, a background color of 242424. You guessed it, it's my favorite, off black. And then we're going to do a display of flex with a flex direction of row, and then justify content center. Now just 2 other little things here. A tags, directly style those. We want those to be white, FFF. And we want to get rid of the text decoration so that we can display it only on hover. And we can put just a little margin left here. And let's increase that font size to larger. One last style here, and that is the hover for links. We want to set opacity to 0.5. And then, actually, we're not going to do the text decoration. I want it to be a little bit further away from the text. And by using a border, it provides us just a few extra pixels between the text and the line. So let's put border bottom 2 pixels, solid, and FFF. All right. Give that a save, and then there our navigation bar is done. Inside of routes, what we want to do here is we first need to make a layout. Inside of routes, let's create a new file called +layout.svelte. What we're going to do in here, we will need a script tag because we need to pull in that navigation bar. So import navbar from /lib/N navbar.svelte. And then let's render that navbar. And then directly underneath that, let's make a div and then put our slot. So all pages, they'll be rendered inside of slot, and then the slot will be inside of this div so that we can style it. And then we're going to add here a class equal main-app. And now here, let's create another style tag inside of our layout. And what we're going to do here is that class main-app. We want a height of 100 view height, a width of 100 view width, so that we're taking up the entire screen, margin of 0, background color of #242424, my favorite black, off black again, color of FFF, display of flex direction, we want column, and then we're going to align items in the center. All right, now if you notice in the background, this is still looking a little bit off. There's actually a little bit of styling we need to do in the main app.html file just to remove the margin. So inside of app, in the head section, let's create a style, and all that is going to do there is adjust the body. So right inside of head, let's say style, and then just say body, margin 0. And since we're here, we're also going to make use of a couple of Google icons. So let's go to fonts.google.com and select any one, but after you select a font, go to the static icon font section and copy out this link. So link relationship style sheet, href, this one here, not the first one. And then we're going to just paste that here right after that style. And then we can give that a save. Now you'll see, don't know why it didn't refresh there, that was odd. But now you'll see that that little margin is gone, and we have our 2 little links. So awesome, moving in the right direction. We are pretty much done with that app.html file, so we can close that. We're not going to need that anymore. But inside of our page.svelte, let's start making our form. What we first need to do is let's get rid of this p tag, and we're going to need a script, so let's move this down a bit. So let's do here, let's say welcome to Consulting Ninja, and we'll create an h2 and say form builder or whatever you'd like. And then we're going to put the rest of this in a div so that we can add our little styles, class equal to form. And then inside of here, let's make a form element. And what we're going to do here, we're going to do a few things. We're going to do a bind this equal to current form. And I'll explain this in just a minute. And then we're going to do an on submit. So just after submit, we want to add a pipe, and then we want to prevent default. We're going to have our own functionality here. And then let's say add input. We're going to create a function there. Now inside of here, everything is going to be inside of a div. a div wrapper. Just that's going to help style. So let's make a label, and this is going to be for, we'll call this input underscore name. Input name. And then we need our input. Input required. We don't want to leave this blank. We don't want any empty names. Type equal to text. Name equal to input underscore name. All right, now we can copy this. And this is going to be input underscore type. Like this. And then this is not going to be an input. What we're actually going to need here is a select. So select. And we do need to make this name equal to input underscore type. We're also going to have a bind here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do bind value equals, and I will explain this all in just a minute. And then this is also going to be a required, so input. And now these are just some, not all, of the input types available. So we want text, and then let's copy this. Let's put the value in first. Value, text, and now let's copy this and paste it 5 more times, roughly. Let's see if I'm right. So copy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to do number, and we can copy this, paste it, and then just make the N capital. And we're going to do password. And the same thing, let's just copy this, paste it, make that capital P. Date. Whoops. We can copy, paste, but this is small d on the value. And then email. Same thing, copy, paste. We need the values to be small because we're going to be plugging those directly into the other form. And time. All right, just like that. Now let's copy this one again. And put it right here. And what this is going to be the button. And let's get rid of this add. It'll be add input, and it is going to be a button. We need to take the required off. Type is going to be button. Name is going to be input underscore add. We'll need to update our for label here. I'm sorry, this is going to be a type of submit. And let's add a class for some styles. Class equals btn add. And then let's make one more bind here. And what we're going to do is we're going to bind this to the same value as the drop down input type. All right, now let's scroll up. So let's create a script tag, script. Open that up just a little bit. And right near the top, let's do let input type and let current form. We also can stub out these functions. Function add input, like that. And let's give that a save and just take a peek at how we're doing here. So we have our input name, our input type, and when we change this, you see that our button text changes. And that's what we want, so that people are aware of what they are adding to the form. And that's what the bind is doing for us for that particular one. So in our input, where we have bind value equal input type, and we have the same bind value equal input type on our select, it's keeping those two values in sync for us. This is one of the things that's really cool with Svelte. So we don't have to write our own functions and create all of this unnecessary or extra bloat in our code base. Svelte deals with all of that behind the scenes. All we have to do is bind the two together with the special bind operator, which is really, really nice. Really reduces the amount of code that you have to write. So the other bind that we have is on the form, and this is a bind this. And what it's doing is it's binding the actual form node to this variable. So again, when we want to make changes to our form, pulling out values, resetting the form, we're going to be able to do all of that by modifying this variable instead of having to create a special function, an onChange handler, and doing all of that. We can just have our function that is running our submit and then modify anything that we want in that form at that time. We also, and this is where it's going to come into play later, we'll also be able to modify that form from other functions. So that's going to be pretty cool. Let's go ahead and update our function here and fill in what the logic. So what we want to do is, if you want to put a console.log here just to see that current form like this, how it changes, you can go ahead and do that. And what you'll see is that this variable is updating anytime you change something in the form, and that's what that bind again is doing. It's super cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to do const form data object equal to an object, and we're going to do input underscore name. It's going to be the value that's currently in the form. Current form dot input underscore name dot value. And then input underscore type is going to be equal to, and let's put a space here just to make that, current form dot input underscore type dot value. But now we're going to get to the next step, which would be we need to set our state, right? In order to have state, we need to create a store. So inside of source, let's create a new file and call this stores.js. Inside of stores, again, one of the beauties of Svelte, all we need to do is import writable, the small w, the uppercase w writable is the type, and the small w, the lowercase w writable is the actual function that you want. And then what we're going to do is export const form state equals writable, and it's going to be, we're going to initialize that to an empty array. And then go ahead and give that a save. Inside of our plus page.svelte, let's go back there, and now in the very top, let's import that. Import form state, and you have to destructure from /stores.js. And then in our function where we're updating our state, now what we need to do is do a form state dot set, and what we're going to set that to is an array where we spread out the current form state, so everything that's in form state already, plus that new object that we just created. Because we have that bind, it makes it really easy. We can pull the values out, and then we also can reset them really easily. So let's just do current form dot input underscore name dot value, put that back to the empty string, and then current form dot input underscore type dot value. This starts as text. That's the default value, so we'll reset that to text. So let's give that a save. Let's add a little bit more markup so that we can render out the inputs that we've just added. So down below our form, let's create another div, and this will be kind of a wrapper. Let's give this a class. We'll have to style this to make this not look terrible. Input underscore list. And then we want to wrap this in an if. So hashtag if $formState.length. So if there's anything in form state, then we're going to do this. Otherwise, we're not. And what we're going to do is render out some more divs. And inside of each div, a paragraph with a class of item underscore label. And this will be name. Let's copy this. Copy, paste, paste. And that will have a type. And delete. All right, now just below the if, still inside of that div wrapper, we want to make an each. So hashtag each $form state as input. So each of those is going to be an input. And then comma, we want the index. And then inside of parentheses, index, because we want to use that as a key. Just to kind of help SvelteKit keep track of changes, it's nice to have that. And then close off our each. Now inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to make a div with a class of item. So div, add a class, item, and inside of here, this is going to be a p tag, and we're going to say brackets input dot input underscore name. Let's copy this. And we want input underscore type. And now, one more. And the class on this one is going to be item underscore btn. We are not going to have a p tag in here. What we're going to have is a button. So button. And then inside the button, we're going to use a icon from Google. And this will be a delete. And then in order to give it the correct icon, you have to have the word and also the class. So class equal to material dash symbols dash outline. And you can copy this right from fonts.google.com. Find the icon you're looking for, click on it, and on the right hand side, scroll down to inserting the icon, and you can just copy and paste that wherever you need it. Okay. Now we need to put a onClick handler here. OnClick equals, whoops, forgot the K, handle delete, and we'll have to pass that index in so that we know which one to delete. Svelte is already yelling at me, saying, hey, that doesn't exist. So let's go up and create that. So function handle delete, take that index, and let's do const array equal to $form state, and then do array.splice index comma 1, and then do form state.set array. Let's give that a save and go to our local host, and let's type something in. So let's type in first name and click add. So the styling is not pretty, but it looks like we have everything there. So that's cool. Let's go ahead and add in some styles. So all the way at the bottom, let's make our style tag. And I'm purposely saving for last the recents because it's pretty cool. So what we want to do here is let's add in an H1 style. We want a margin of 0.25 EM, but we want a margin top of 1 EM, just to help give a little space between our links. H2, we want a margin just of 0.25 EM. Our form, we're going to style this, and this will be the class that we're styling. And what we want to do here is, let's do a display of flex direction of row. We want to justify as space around. We want to force a width on here of 60%. Let's also set a height of 3 EM. Let's set a margin left of 4 EM. And let's do the same for right. We can copy and paste that. And just change this to right. And let's set some padding, a little bit of padding, 0.5 EM. Oops, not 0, 0.5 EM. Background color, we want this to be like this weird off-colored gray green thing. 5B615F. And a border of 2 pixels, solid, and FFF. Give that a save and let's go check that out. So that's looking a little bit better. Getting there. Now we just got to get everything else lined up. Alright, so we're going to add a label. And we're just going to change the display to block. And let's just go down and do the rest of the styles that we need. Get the styling out of the way. We want the input list, input underscore list, padding of 1 EM, width of 30%, display grid, grid template columns. We want 3 auto. We're going to style our p tags and just text align center. We also are going to have a item label class, and we're just going to do border 2 pixels, solid, FFF, and just a few more styles here. We're almost done with the CSS. We want an item class, display flex direction column, justify content center. We need to style our item underscore btn. This is going to be text align centered, padding top 0.75 EM, and we want button, we want a hover effect on our button, cursor pointer, and opacity 0.5. And then we also want one on our btn, dot btn underscore add hover, and just copy and paste this. Alright, give that a save. Let's go check and see where we're at. Whoops, I apologize. I made a mistake. There's actually a few of those styles in here. So these first 3 need to come out. And these should be directly on the form itself. Give that a save. That's looking better. There we go. All right, so we have our inputs, and we can add them, and they are rendering out correctly here. We can delete them. So that's pretty cool. Now let's add our recents. So in order to do the recents functionality, we need to add another piece of state. So inside of our store, let's export const recents. And this is also going to be a writable, and we're also going to initialize this as an empty array. So let's save that, and inside of our plus page.svelte, let's add recents in here. Now there's a few things that we need to do, a few changes that we need to make because that we're adding that additional functionality. So the first thing is inside of our add input function, we need to do a small check here at the end. And what we're going to check is if $recents, we're going to pull out all of the .map. We are going to pull out all of the inputs that are in there, and we're going to grab their names. Input.input_name. Oops, this should be input, not inputs. Just like that. And then just outside of the map, so in between the ending if and the ending map parenthesis, do a dot includes form data object dot input_name. And if that's true, then we want to return. So this will make it easy, since we're just comparing strings, to just go through all of the ones that are there in your recents list and just make sure that we're not making duplicates of that name, so we don't want that. So if that's false, then what we want to do is we want to do a recents.set, and this is going to be the array, so ... spread it out, recents, and then we'll add that form data object here as well. Now this is only going to do us some good if we are able to see it, so we'll also need to add in a fourth item into our form. So let's go do that. So just below this add input, let's go ahead and copy this select out. So copy, and inside of the form, but below the last div, paste that. Now what we need to do is let's update the label. So this will be input_recent. And let's get rid of this label and change this to recents. Below the label, let's write an if statement. So hashtag if $recents.length. And then we can actually put this ending if just on the outside of the select, in between the div. So inside of the little div, but just outside of the select. We're wrapping the select in there, bracket / if. So we only want to render this out if there is something there, but we do want the label all the time. Try to prevent your UI from jostling around too much. So inside of our select, we're going to do a couple of things here. One, this is not required. We are also not binding any values on this one. We do need to update the name. This is going to be input_recent. What we are going to do here is we're going to put an onChange handler and call this load recent. This is what's going to take those values and load them into our form for us using that bind on the form. So some other cool stuff that we're going to do here. We're going to make a none option. So let's go ahead and make a none option. This will be none. Now you can only have strings for values. Not sure if you guys are aware of that, but one thing that we can do to get around that, so we actually can do a value equal to JSON.stringify. So let's do a bracket like this and do JSON.stringify, and then what we're stringifying, for the none, we're going to stringify a custom object. So we'll put the object in here, opening and closing parentheses, opening, closing brackets, and we're going to do input underscore name equal to empty string and input underscore type equal to text. So if they select that one, it's just going to basically reset it. And then all of these other options, let's get rid of except for one. And we're going to wrap it in an each. So opening, closing brackets, hashtag each, $recents as recent input, comma index. We want that index again. And we're going to use it as a key, but we're going to add a little bit of text. So let's say recent plus index. That way there's no name collisions there. We could use a UUID, and you should if you're going to do this in a production. This is just a fun little project though. And then let's close that each off. And what this is going to be, actually let's copy this other one so that we don't have to type out the JSON.stringify again. And what we're going to do here is, instead of our custom object, we're going to JSON.stringify that recent input, like that. And then the text is going to be the name. So it'll be brackets, recent input dot input underscore name, just like that. And now let's go ahead and write the function here. One other thing that we should do, let's make a, so inside of this if, just underneath the closing select, let's do a little else, because why not? Let's make an else, and let's just put a span in here that says empty. So if they don't have any recents, this will just say empty. So it would be a label of recents, and then it'll say empty if there are none. So let's scroll up back inside of our script, and let's write the function that's going to load those recent values back into our form for us. So let's make a function called loadRecent, like we named it. This does not take anything because we're going to be pulling the values out directly from our bind, right? Pretty sweet. So what we're going to do is, let's do a const value equal JSON. We're going to parse JSON out of that string that we created. So we're creating a string in order to make it work with our option, and then we're going to parse a JSON object back out of that. It's a nice little workaround there. Current form, and again here we're going to take that current form. Let's add some conditionals on there just to make sure. Input underscore recent dot value, and let's add that as well. It's a nullish coalescing operator. So if there's nothing in there, then we're just going to pass an empty object just so that this parse does not error out. And need the dot. All right, so then let's do a little check. If not value, so if there's nothing there, let's bail out. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to set, if not value return. If you want, you can console.log to see what's there. But otherwise, we're going to set current form.input underscore name dot value equal to value dot input underscore name. And then current form dot, you see how useful that binding the form to that variable is, because we can make use of it all over the place without having to add in any crazy conditional logic or anything nuts. It's just really straightforward. And this will be input underscore type. All right, give that a save. Let's go take a check and see. So there is our recents. It's there. This is the conditional. Since there are no recently added inputs, the list is empty, so it just says empty. Let's go ahead and add one called first name. So let's add it. And now, Since there is something in recents, we've got the none, which essentially would reset these. Otherwise, we've got first name. So if I wanted to copy that one, I could hit first name and it'll copy those values in there for me. If I want to set it back, then I select none and it just resets it. Pretty sweet, right? But now, what about the second part of this? That's the whole next page. So let's go ahead and make that now. That's not going to be too fancy, but inside of routes, let's create a new folder called form. And then inside of form, let's create a new plus page.svelte. And in here, again, this is going to be pretty basic. We're not going to do much in here. Let's create a script. We are going to need state. So one of the things that I wanted to show here is how state works. Form state. We're not going to need the recents here. And then when you're importing this one, just watch the autofill. The autofill likes to be incorrect when importing from inside of subdirectories inside of routes for some reason. Must be a SvelteKit 1.0 thing that needs to be addressed. But we need to do 2 .. slashes here to get outside of that and then to stores. All right, let's make our function for submission, and we're not going to do anything crazy here. We have already spent quite a bit of time on this project. There are so many other cool things that we could do. Let's just make an alert in here that says thanks for submitting. And then outside of the script, let's make an H1 and say form page. And then let's create a form with an on submit. We are again going to want to put the pipe and prevent default. That's not the correct prevent default. That's interesting. There should not be an underscore and the D should be capitalized. So that's interesting. Haven't had that happen before. Let's run our submit function. My autocorrect getting crazy there. So inside of this form, we just want to have on the form itself an on submit with prevent default and run that function. Inside of here, let's do a div. And what we're going to do is we're going to borrow that form class. So it's class equal to form. And directly inside of here, let's make an each, hashtag each, $form state as input, comma, index. Inside of parentheses, we're going to do form plus index, again, to keep any name collisions from happening in our small app here. You can use, there's actually a built-in SvelteKit package that you can use UUIDs, and do that if you are going to use this for anything purposeful. Inside of our each, what we're going to do is just create a div with a label. The for is going to be input underscore name. Input underscore name. The value is going to be the same, like that. And then input, so let's make our input required type equal to, you guessed it, input underscore type. Name equal to the same. Input underscore name. Close that off. Cool. Now outside of this div, but inside of the form, let's make an if statement. Say hashtag if $form state dot length. I like that check, by the way. Super helpful. And let's close that if. And what we're going to put in here is a div. This is going to be a button. Let's give this a class of btn. And inside of here, we're going to make an input class equal to btn underscore submit. Type equals submit. Name equal to form underscore submit. value equal to submit with a capital S, submit. All right, now let's just make a few styles. We've got just a couple to do. So let's make our style. And we're first going to do an H1. We actually can copy this from the other one, our other page. So let's scroll down and just copy out our H1 style. Paste that in, save us some typing. We're also going to copy, let's copy the form class. This one. The form class, not the form itself. And let's paste that one in there. But here, let's make it just a couple of little changes. First of all, let's make the width 40 view width. And let's get rid of all this other stuff. And what we want to do is let's make flex direction row and display flex and justify content space around. We also want to make our label not the class, the actual element, display block. We need the .btn underscore submit to be align self flex end justify self end. We want btn underscore submit hover. We can copy this from the other one. It's going to be the hover effects at the bottom. So cursor pointer and opacity, however you want to say that. One last class, .btn, and we're going to do padding top, 1 em, and text align center. And go ahead and save that. So now inside of our app, let's create a form. So let's create a first name. Let's create a last name. Date of birth. Input type date. And when I go to my form page, now I have that form that I created. So you can see how this would be helpful, because you can have an application where you have a role of administrator, and the admin can create forms that different user roles can make use of in the application. And then you can go ahead and set the form to whatever you want. Let's just call this Bob Johnson. I like to use that name. Let's create any sort of date here and then just submit. And all we have it doing is just saying, hey, thanks for submitting. I hope that you've found this project helpful and fun. If you did, please give a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Comment below with what you thought about the different pieces of functionality that we used here. And as always, have a great day.